The Aztec Brotherhood cartel lived by an ancient proverb in the Sonora Valley: when vultures gather, death follows. For 15 years, they'd ruled these dusty borderlands through calculated savagery, turning thriving farming communities into shadows of their former selves. But on this scorching Arizona morning, as their black SUVs surrounded Michael Reeves at his daughter's horse ranch, they were about to learn a brutal lesson about underestimating a simple rancher. They saw him as nothing more than a weathered man with calloused hands and a gentle smile, someone whose land they could seize, whose daughter they could threaten. After all, what could one aging horse breeder do against the most feared cartel? In 4 states, they had no idea they'd just made the worst mistake of their lives. Behind that sun-worn face and humble demeanor lay 22 years of Delta Force operations, a network of elite operators who'd served together in the world's deadliest battlefields, and the kind of lethal skills that made America's special forces legendary. Michael Reeves had spent years building a peaceful life, turning warrior into rancher, soldier into father. But now, as the Aztec Brotherhood circled his only daughter like vultures over dying prey, they were about to discover why even retired warriors are deadly when protecting their own. Some units you don't challenge, some bonds you don't test, and some mistakes you only make once. The morning sun climbs over the Sonora mountains, painting the desert in shades of amber and gold. Sarah Reeves guides her prize stallion through the practice ring, the horse's hooves kicking up small clouds of dust with each precise movement. At 24, she moves with the natural grace of someone who's spent their life around these magnificent animals, understanding their power and pride as if it were her own. "Looking good, Thunder," she calls out encouragingly as the black stallion responds to her subtle commands. The horse's coat gleams in the early light, a testament to hours of careful grooming. This is more than just practice. In 2 weeks, Thunder will compete in the Southwest Regional Championships, carrying the hopes of the Double R Ranch with him. From the ranch house porch, Catherine Reeves watches her daughter work, pride mixing with concern as she listens to the morning news. On her tablet, the reporter's voice carries quietly through the speakers. Another family ranch, seized in suspicious circumstances near the border. The Martinez property was found legally transferred to an unknown holding company after refusing multiple cash offers. This marks the 4th such incident in Sonora Valley this month. Catherine's eyes drift to the family photos hanging in the living room, visible through the open door. Michael in his dress uniform at his retirement ceremony, Sarah winning. Her first equestrian competition, their first day at Double R Ranch 10 years ago. Michael's been gone 4 days now, delivering 2 of their best trained horses to buyers in Texas, the longest they've been apart since he left the service. In the practice ring, Sarah brings Thunder to a halt, frowning at something in the distance. A dark SUV cruises slowly along the access road that borders their property, its windows tinted black as pitch. No license plate. Her father's voice echoes in her memory. "Trust your gut, sweetheart. If something feels wrong, it usually is." She guides Thunder toward the stable, keeping her movements casual while watching the vehicle in her peripheral vision. The SUV stops. A second one appears from the opposite direction, moving with deliberate purpose. Catherine's voice carries across the yard, sharp with urgency. "Sarah, inside, now!" But it's too late. 2 more SUVs emerge from different approaches, boxing them in with military precision. The first vehicle's door opens, and Marco Santiago steps out, his snakeskin boots raising small clouds of dust. His reputation precedes him, the Aztec Brotherhood's most feared enforcer, known for making examples of those who refuse the cartel's generous offers. Señorita Reeves, his voice carries across the yard, dripping with false courtesy. Your father has been quite unresponsive regarding our business proposal. Sarah's mind races, remembering fragments of hushed conversations between her parents late at night, the refused offers to buy their land, the veiled threats from men in expensive suits, her father's increasing vigilance. "My father's not here," Sarah replies, her voice steadier than she feels. "You'll have to come back another time." Santiago laughs, the sound devoid of warmth. "Oh, we know exactly where your father is. In fact, some of our associates are having a very interesting conversation with him right now in Texas." He spreads his hands in a gesture of mock sympathy. "But we thought, why should he have to make this decision alone? Perhaps, with the right motivation, he'll see things our way." More men emerge from the vehicles, weapons visible under their jackets. Sarah counts 8, no, 10 of them. Professional, coordinated, moving with military precision to cut off any escape route. Inside the house, Catherine reaches for the hidden compartment beneath the kitchen counter. Her hands finding the satellite phone Michael insisted they keep for emergencies. But before she can dial, the back door splinters inward. Armed men flood the kitchen. "Looking for this?" A new voice enters, smooth as silk, but cold as a desert night. Javier Castillo himself, leader of the Aztec Brotherhood, holds up a broken satellite phone. "Your husband's paranoia is amusing, Mrs. Reeves. All these precautions, yet here we are." Sarah watches helplessly as more cartel soldiers drag her mother out onto the porch. The morning sun catches on Santiago's gold ring as he gestures to his men. "Bring them both." Señor Reeves needs to understand that in Sonora Valley, when the Aztec Brotherhood makes an offer, his smile shows too many teeth. Refusal is not an option. The last thing Sarah sees before they force her into one of the SUVs is her mother's face, not afraid, but fierce. Catherine Reeves manages to meet her daughter's eyes, her expression conveying a single message: "Your father won't come alone." As the vehicles pull away from Double R Ranch, none of the cartel soldiers notice the small smartwatch on Sarah's wrist, still actively transmitting its location, still sending out an emergency signal. Just as her father had taught her, just as they'd practiced, though she'd never thought they'd need it. In Texas, Michael Reeves feels his phone vibrate with an emergency alert. His weathered hands still over the sale paperwork, his friendly smile fading as he reads the message. The change that comes over his face makes the stable manager step back involuntarily. Gone is the gentle rancher. In his place stands a warrior, awakened after 10 years of peace. The manager watches in confusion as Michael Reeves calmly sets down his pen, turns, and walks out without another word. The Aztec Brotherhood is about to learn why some men spend their lives trying to forget the violence they're capable of. Why some bonds forged in combat never truly break, and why a father's love combined with Delta Force training can be the deadliest force in the world. Michael Reeves's truck cuts through the Texas heat, every mile between him and Sonora Valley feeling like an eternity. His fingers drum against the steering wheel, not from nervousness but from muscle memory, the same rhythm he used to tap before missions, counting seconds, measuring time. His mind is already shifting, processing information, formulating plans. The burner phone on his passenger seat comes to life, Mike, got your signal. What's the situation? Colonel James. Iron Fletcher's familiar voice crackles through. They took them, James. Aztec Brotherhood. Sarah's watch shows them heading south, toward the old Cooper property. Jesus. Fletcher exhales slowly. The cartel that's been buying up ranches? Word is, they're using the stables for drug storage. More than that, Mike's hands tighten on the wheel. Their horse trailers connect to every major track from here to California. Perfect cover for moving product. You sure about this, Mike? Aztec Brotherhood isn't some local gang. They've got military training, professional operators. A ghost of a smile crosses Mike's face. Remember Kandahar? That night in the mountains when we were outnumbered 30-1? Those weren't good odds, Fletcher says quietly. No, Mike's voice carries grim satisfaction. They weren't. For them. Mike checks his rearview mirror out of habit. How fast can you get here? Already moving. Got some of the old unit too. Guys who remember what it means when one of ours needs help. A pause. But Mike, local law enforcement. Already tried. Called Sheriff Wilson on my way out of Texas. He's a good man, but his hands are tied. Brotherhood's got people inside the department. The afternoon sun beats down as Mike turns onto the back roads, avoiding the main highway where the Brotherhood might have spotters. His truck passes Old Man Harrison's ranch, where the veteran rancher sits on his porch. The old-timer's hand raises in his usual greeting, then freezes when he sees Mike's face. Even at a distance, he recognizes something has changed in his neighbor. They'll expect you to wait for help, Fletcher's voice continues, to call in law enforcement. I know. They'll have Catherine and Sarah well guarded. I know that too. You've been out for 10 years, Mike. Fletcher pauses. You know what? They used to call you in the unit the conductor, because you could orchestrate chaos like a symphony. Mike turns down an unmarked dirt road, one that'll take him to the old hunting cabin where he keeps things he'd hoped never to need again. Everything I did, every mission, every operation, it was all preparation. Preparation for what? For the day someone was stupid enough to threaten my family. At the Aztec Brotherhood stronghold, once the proud Cooper Ranch, Marco Santiago, walks the perimeter. Guards are posted at strategic points, professional mercenaries mixed with cartel soldiers. Everything has been planned meticulously. They have the mother and daughter secured separately, basic tactics to prevent coordinated escape attempts. The local sheriff has been paid off. Their people watch the main roads. Any word from Reeves? Javier Castillo asks, examining satellite. Photos of the valley's horse ranches and transportation routes. Nothing yet, Santiago reports, but he'll come. They always do when it's family. Of course he'll come, Castillo agrees, tracing the network of ranch access roads on the map. That's the point. When he does, we'll have the deed signed, his family's insurance, and a clear message to every other rancher in the valley. He studies the transportation routes. By this time next month, we'll have a smuggling network right through the heart of Arizona, and no one will ever think to look twice at horse trailers. In a locked room upstairs, Sarah Reeves works methodically, at the ropes binding her wrists, just as her father taught her years ago during what she'd thought were oddly specific survival lessons. Across the hall, Catherine Reeves sits calmly in her own restraints, watching the guards through half-closed eyes, counting patrols, noting weapons, gathering intelligence. Neither woman shows fear. They've both lived with a warrior long enough to know that fear is useless. Action is what matters. Information is what counts. The sun begins to set over Sonora Valley. In the fading light, 3 unmarked vehicles carry Colonel James Fletcher and a select group of former operators toward the Double R Ranch. These men have no official standing anymore, no government backing, no legal authority. What they do have is a code as old as warfare itself. You don't abandon your brothers. At the hunting cabin, Michael Reeves opens a heavy chest that hasn't seen light in 10 years. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, lies the gear of a man who spent his life perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare. His fingers trace familiar equipment, not with eagerness, but with the solemn recognition of necessity. "You sure they're at the Cooper place?" Fletcher's voice comes through the secure line. Sarah's watch tracked them there before the signal died. Mike begins methodically checking equipment. It's defensible terrain, gives them clear lines of sight. Exactly where I'd set up if I was them. How many? Counted 12 on the property, probably more inside. Mix of cartel soldiers and professionals. That's a lot of firepower, Mike. No. Michael Reeves slips on black tactical gear that still fits perfectly. It's not enough. The first stars appear over Sonora Valley. At the Cooper Ranch, guards patrol with professional precision, night vision equipment scanning the darkness. Inside, Castillo and Santiago review their plans, confident in their position, their numbers, their preparation. They don't realize that darkness isn't their ally. In the growing shadows, a team is coming. A Father is coming. Delta Force operators are coming. And the Aztec Brotherhood is about to learn that some things are worse than death, some men are worse than ghosts, and some mistakes are the last ones you ever make. Night settles over the Cooper Ranch like a heavy blanket, but inside, Sarah Reeves's mind remains sharp, alert. Through her window, she counts 4 guards on regular patrol, their movement suggesting military background. Her father's voice echoes in her memory. Professionals have patterns. Patterns can be predicted. The door opens, and Marco Santiago enters, still wearing his signature smile. "Your father's a stubborn man, Miss Reeves. 3 hours, no response to our calls." He pulls up a chair, sitting backward, arms folded over its back. "Tell me, what? A kind of father doesn't answer when his family's in danger." Sarah meets his gaze steadily, the kind you should be worried about. In another room, Catherine Reeves listens to the heavy boots of guards passing her door. 12 years of marriage to a Delta Force operator taught her things about survival, about patience, about the calm before a storm. She remembers Mike's words on their wedding day. "I'll never bring the war home." But now, she thinks, the war came to them. Miles away in the gathering darkness, Michael Reeves moves through the underbrush with a silence that speaks of thousands of hours of training. His gear is old, but maintained perfectly. Another lesson from his years of service. Never trust new equipment in a crisis. Trust what you know. His radio crackles softly. "Ghost lead. This is Spectre 1. We're in position on the North Ridge." Fletcher's voice is barely a whisper. "I count 16 tangos, not 12. They've got new arrivals." "Confirmed," Mike replies, his voice equally low. "They're expecting company, probably have a QRF on standby." "Quick reaction force," Fletcher observes. "These guys aren't playing around." "No, they're not." Mike studies the property through his scope. The Cooper Ranch sits on a small rise, giving it clear lines of sight in all directions. Security lights illuminate the perimeter, creating deliberate blind spots in the darkness beyond. Professional setup. They've got overwatch on all approaches, multiple firing positions. Just like Damascus, Fletcher observes. Similar, but they've made one mistake. What's that? They think they're hunting a rancher. Mike checks his equipment. One final time, They haven't figured out they're being hunted. Inside the house, Javier Castillo reviews satellite imagery with his security chief, a former Israeli commando. Reeves has military background, the chief notes. Delta Force, retired 10 years. 10 years retired, Castillo dismisses the concern. Ranchers get soft. With respect, the chief's voice carries weight. Delta operators don't think like normal soldiers. They're trained for asymmetric warfare, for operating alone in hostile territory. He's outnumbered, outgunned, and we have his family. Castillo's patience is wearing thin. Post additional men on the east approach. If he comes, he'll come from there, where the brush is thickest. The security chief hesitates. That's the obvious. Brutal, exactly. And a desperate man will take the obvious route. Michael Reeves isn't on the east approach. He's already much closer, having used the ranch's old drainage tunnels that he helped Cooper design years ago. Sarah's desperate call about water pressure fluctuations makes sense now. The Brotherhood has been mapping the system, preparing their smuggling route. Team 2 in position, another whisper comes through his radio. More former operators, men who dropped everything when Fletcher made the call. The Brotherhood forged in combat doesn't die with retirement. Hold positions, Mike orders softly. Wait for my signal. His hand touches the ground, feeling for vibrations from vehicle movements. More arrivals. The Brotherhood is building up. Their forces, preparing for a siege that isn't coming. In her room, Sarah feels it first, a subtle change in the guards' patterns. They're clustering on the east side of the property, leaving gaps in their coverage. Small gaps, but her father taught her that small gaps are all you need. She begins working on her restraints with renewed purpose. Catherine notices too. The guards outside her door are talking more, their tension betrayed by the change in their voices. They're waiting for something, preparing for something. They're preparing for the wrong thing. Mike's voice comes through the radio one final time. Iron, remember Sarajevo? The night we had to extract that diplomat? Yeah, you disappeared for 4 hours. When you came back, the enemy spent all night waiting for a frontal assault that never came, because we came in through the last place they'd expect. Mike begins moving, each motion calculated, silent. These men are professionals. They're prepared for a desperate father trying to save his family. But that's what you're doing, isn't it? Fletcher asks. No. Mike's voice carries the weight of absolute certainty. I'm not trying to save my family. I'm hunting the men who took them. There's a difference. Inside the Cooper house, Santiago returns to the command center, frustration evident in his movements. Still no word from Reeves. Maybe we need to motivate him further, one of the lieutenants suggests. Patience, Castillo counsels. The American will come. They all break when it's family. The security chief stares at the thermal imaging screens, at the empty approaches to the house. Something feels wrong, but he can't place it. The obvious routes are covered, the obvious threats are accounted for. But Michael Reeves isn't an obvious threat. He's a conductor of chaos. And as the night deepens over Sonora Valley, as the Brotherhood's forces focus on the east approach, as their thermal cameras scan empty fields, none of them notice the drainage maintenance hatch slowly, silently opening. In the house's foundation, they're looking for a desperate father charging to the rescue. They're about to meet something far worse, a warrior who never stopped being a warrior, who spent 10 years maintaining his skills, not out of paranoia, but out of love, because he knew someday someone might threaten his family. That day has come, and the Aztec Brotherhood is about to learn why some men are feared long after they leave the battlefield. The basement of the Cooper Ranch holds memories of better times. Once it stored hay bales and riding equipment, now it's filled with the quiet sound of dripping water and Michael Reeves's measured breathing as he emerges from the drainage tunnel. His movements are fluid and controlled in the darkness. Through his earpiece, Fletcher's voice whispers, "Two guards just entered the east wing. They're doing aggressive patrols now, getting nervous." Mike checks his watch. 20 minutes since he entered the tunnels. The water had been chest deep in places, cold enough to shock an unprepared man into gasping, but Mike had spent countless nights in mountain streams, teaching his body to accept discomfort as merely information. "Status on the QRF," he breathes, barely audible. "Still staged 2 miles out. We've got eyes on them. 20 more, well armed." Mike processes this information as he moves through the basement, each step carefully placed to avoid any sound. His night vision shows him the basement's layout. Storage racks, old tack equipment, a water heater. More importantly, it shows him the dust patterns on the floor. Recent boot prints lead to and from the northeast corner. They're using this as a staging area, he sub-vocalizes. Supply runs coming through the basement. Above him, floorboards creak as guards patrol. Mike freezes, becoming part of the darkness. In his mind, he maps their movements, building a pattern. 3 steps, pause, 5 steps, turn. Professional movements, but professionals can be predicted. In her second-floor room, Sarah hears the change in the guards' tone. They're Spanish carries, an edge of tension now. Through her window, she sees them clustering in defensive positions, weapons ready, watching the tree line to the east. "Movement in Sector 4, one guard says. "You see something?" Another responds. "No, that's what worries me." Sarah allows herself a small smile. Her father had taught her that fear was a weapon as effective as any bullet when used correctly. The cartel soldiers might not know it yet, but they're already fighting on her father's terms. In the command center, Castillo studies the thermal imaging screens with growing frustration. Every approach is covered, every angle watched, yet something feels wrong. The security chief stands at his shoulder, equally troubled. "The east side is secure," Castillo demands. "Triple coverage," the chief confirms. "If he comes that way, we'll see him." "Then why?" Castillo's question is cut short by a burst of static from the radio. "Command, this is East 3. We've got movement in the trees." "Confirm." Castillo leans forward. "Small disturbance, might be wildlife." "But check it," Castillo orders. "Full team response." 4 guards move toward the tree line, weapons ready, spacing professional. They find disturbed branches, signs of passage, fresh marks that any tracker would follow. Too fresh, too obvious. In the basement, Mike listens to their radio chatter through a stolen frequency. His diversion is working. Pieces of brush tied to fishing line, pulled by remote motors he'd planted hours ago. Simple tricks, but effective against men expecting a direct assault. "Ghost lead, we've got movement at the QRF," Fletcher's voice returns. "They're spinning up vehicles." "Right on schedule," Mike whispers. He reaches the basement stairs, noting the wear patterns on the steps. Heavy traffic on the right side means the left boards might be quieter. Small details, details that keep conductors orchestrating their symphony of chaos. Catherine Reeves sits in her room, listening. Years of marriage to a Delta operator taught her to read silence. The guards are too focused on the outside, too convinced of their internal security. They don't realize that the most dangerous predators are already inside their perimeter. Santiago stalks the hallways, irritation growing with each report of movement in the trees, each shadow that turns out to be nothing. "Check the women," he orders a guard. Reeves might try to signal them somehow. The guard moves toward Sarah's room, keyring jingling. He never reaches the door. Mike emerges from the shadows, like smoke becoming solid. His arm locks around the guard's throat, cutting off both blood flow and any chance of alarm. The guard's eyes widen in recognition, in fear, but it's too late. Darkness claims him before. He can process how impossible this is, how a man could appear from empty air. Lowering the unconscious guard silently to the floor, Mike retrieves the keyring with one hand while his other moves to his radio. Spectre 1, time to earn your pay. On the North Ridge. James Fletcher smiles grimly. Copy that, Ghost Lead, making noise. The sound of engines revving carries across the valley as Fletcher's team makes their presence known. Right on cue, the QRF responds, vehicles roaring to life. The night fills with the sound of tactical response, of men rushing to defend against a threat from the north. All according to plan. In the command center, Castillo's radio crackles with urgent reports. Multiple contacts to the north. Vehicles approaching from the ridge, possible assault force. Finally, Castillo snarls. Reeves has made his move. All units, prepare to repel assault from the north. QRF, full response. The security chief stares at the thermal screens, at the mass movement of their forces toward the north threat. Something cold settles in his stomach as he realizes their mistake. Wait, he starts to say. We need to maintain internal security. But it's too late. The pieces are already in motion, their forces already responding exactly as they were expected. To respond exactly as they were trained to respond, exactly as Michael Reeves knew they would respond. In her room, Sarah hears the keys in her door. Her muscles tense, ready to fight or run. The door opens silently, and a shadow fills the frame, a shadow wearing her father's face. Ready to go home, Mike whispers. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Sarah Reeves feels tears. In her eyes. What took you so long? She manages, her voice barely steady. Mike moves to free her from her restraints, his movements swift and sure. Had to wait for them to think they knew what I was doing. He helps her to her feet. Can you walk? Sarah nods, then freezes as boots sound in the hallway. Mike moves her behind him, becoming once again the shadow that walks through walls. But the footsteps pass, hurrying toward the north side of the house, where Fletcher's team is creating their diversion. Mom? Sarah whispers. Next stop, Mike promises. But first, we're going to teach the Aztec Brotherhood why some people you don't threaten, ever. Outside, the night fills with the sound of response teams and tactical movement. Inside, in the quiet darkness of the house's heart, a conductor continues his deadly symphony, moving room by room, shadow by shadow. The Brotherhood thought they were the predators tonight. They're about to learn how wrong they were. Through the darkened hallways of the Cooper house, Michael Reeves moves like a shadow among shadows, Sarah close behind him. Her steps mirror his, exactly as he taught her years ago during what she'd thought were just games. Walk where I walk, he'd said. Step how I step. Now she understands those weren't games at all. They were preparation. 2 guards at Mom's door. Sarah whispers so soft, only years of combat experience let Mike hear her. He nods once. The guards are positioned professionally, one watching each direction of the hallway. No easy approach, but Michael Reeves didn't. Survived 22 years of special operations by taking easy approaches. Remember the blackouts, he breathes to Sarah. She nods, understanding immediately. In the command center, Castillo watches thermal imaging of the northern approach. Fletcher's team has drawn most of their forces to the perimeter, exactly as planned. The security chief paces behind him, that cold feeling in his stomach growing stronger. "Something's wrong," the chief says. "This is too obvious." "Of course it's obvious," Castillo snaps. He's desperate. A father trying to save his family doesn't think clearly. The chief shakes his head. Delta operators are different. The lights go out, not just in one room or one section. The entire house plunges into darkness as the main breaker dies. Emergency lights kick in, casting weak amber glows that create more shadows than they dispel. "Report!" Castillo barks into his radio. Static answers. Their communications are down too. In the hallway outside Catherine's room, the guards raise. Their weapons, training kicking in as they switch on weapon-mounted lights. Standard procedure: identify threats, establish fields of fire, maintain security. But weapon lights have a fatal flaw. They tell everyone exactly where you are and which way you're looking. Michael Reeves isn't where their lights are looking. The first guard registers a whisper of movement above him too late. Mike drops from the ceiling panels he'd used for concealment. Years of close-quarters combat training evident in every motion. Before the guard can shout, before he can even process what's happening, a precise strike to his carotid drops him into unconsciousness. The second guard turns at the soft thump of his partner, falling. His weapon light illuminates empty hall. Training tells him to call for backup. Instead, a hand clamps over his mouth from behind, an arm locks around his throat, and darkness claims him before he can understand how someone got behind him in a straight hallway. "Clear," Mike breathes. Sarah moves forward, retrieving the keyring from the fallen guard. Her hands don't shake as she unlocks her mother's door. More lessons learned but never understood until now. Catherine Reeves sits calmly in her chair, looking for all the world like she's been expecting them. "You're late," she says to her husband. "Traffic," Mike responds, the ghost of a smile touching his lips as he cuts her restraints. Through his earpiece, Fletcher's voice crackles. "Ghost lead, QRF is fully committed to the north, but they're figuring out it's a feint. You've got maybe 5 minutes." "Understood." Mike helps Catherine to her feet. "Time for phase 2. In the command center, Castillo finally gets the backup. Generator online, lights flicker back, radios crackle with restored power. "All units report." The responses paint a chaotic picture. No sign of assault forces on the North Ridge, just empty vehicles with engines running. The QRF reports no contact, no targets, and 3 guards aren't responding to radio checks. The security chief's face goes pale as realization hits. "He's inside. He was always inside." Santiago bursts into the room. "The women, they're gone." Castillo's composure cracks for the first time. "Find them, full sweep, room by room, and someone get me Reeves's location." But Michael Reeves isn't moving through rooms anymore. He's leading his family through the drainage tunnels, following the route he mapped hours ago. Behind them, confusion erupts in the house as the Brotherhood's forces realize they've been playing someone else's game all along. "How?" Catherine asks as they move through the darkness. "How did you get in?" "They watched every approach, except the one they were planning to use themselves," Mike explains, his voice still combat quiet. "The drainage tunnels. Their own smuggling route gave me a way in." Sarah remembers the pressure fluctuation she'd been tracking. "They've been mapping the tunnels." "Yes, but I helped design this system. Know it better than they ever will." Behind them, shouts echo through the house as the Brotherhood discovers their prisoners missing. Flashlight beams probe the darkness. Orders are barked in Spanish and English. Professional operators switch to tactical search patterns, but they're searching areas Michael Reeves has already abandoned. Ghost lead, they're pulling forces back. To the house, Fletcher updates. QRF is 3 minutes out. Good. Mike's voice carries satisfaction. Everything's on schedule. Schedule? Sarah asks as they reach a junction in the tunnels. Right about now, they'll be calling in their discovery of the missing prisoners. Mike's voice is drowned out by the sudden thunder of helicopters overhead. Powerful searchlights pierce the night sky as DEA choppers appear over the Cooper property. Anonymous. Tip about cartel activity, Mike explains as he guides his family through the final stretch of tunnel. Called in about 20 minutes ago. Just long enough for them to mobilize, just short enough that the Brotherhood couldn't be warned. Catherine shakes her head, a mixture of admiration and exasperation in her voice. You planned all of this? No, Mike corrects her. I planned for all of this. There's a difference. They emerge from the tunnel into the cool night air, far from the chaos erupting at the Cooper Ranch. Fletcher's team will have already scattered, leaving the Brotherhood to face the DEA with a house full of evidence of their smuggling operation. But Michael Reeves isn't done yet. Phase 2 is complete. His family is safe. Now comes Phase 3, because the Brotherhood needs to learn more than just the price of their mistake. They need to learn why some lines you never cross, why some men you never threaten, and that lesson is just beginning. The safe house sits 20 miles from the Cooper property, an old desert homestead owned by Fletcher under a different name. As DEA helicopters circle the horizon like mechanical vultures, Mike watches his wife and daughter sleep on worn but comfortable couches. For the first time since receiving that alert in Texas, he allows himself to feel the rage he's kept carefully contained. His satellite phone vibrates. They're running, Fletcher's voice reports. DEA raids spooked them hard. Castillo and Santiago slipped out through a backup tunnel we didn't know about. How many did they catch? 16, including their security chief. But at least 20. They got away. They're regrouping at secondary locations. Mike moves outside onto the dark porch, his voice dropping. Their money, the documents, gone. But that daughter of yours, she's something else. Says she downloaded files from their computer system while they were holding her. Got their whole operation mapped out. A ghost of pride crosses Mike's face. She's her mother's daughter. Smart, observant. Her father's too, Fletcher adds. Speaking of which, local sheriff wants to talk to you, says it's important. 10 minutes later, Sheriff Wilson's police cruiser pulls up to the safe house. The sheriff looks exhausted, his uniform dusty from the night's chaos. Hell of a mess. Mike, DEA is crawling all over 3 counties now. Find anything interesting? More than we bargained for. Those drainage tunnels, they connect to half the seized ranches in the valley. The Brotherhood's been building this network for years. Wilson nods, using horse transporters cover for smuggling routes. Smart, too smart. He runs a hand through his hair. Thing is, they're not done. Just intercepted communications. They're calling in reinforcements. Hardcore operators from their central command, professional hit teams. How many? 3 units, maybe 60 men total. These aren't street thugs, Mike. They're former special forces, mercenaries, cartel elite. Inside the house, Sarah stirs on the couch, troubled by dreams. Mike watches. Through the window, his expression hardening. They're not coming for the tunnels anymore, are they? Wilson shakes his head grimly. No, they're coming for you, your family. The Brotherhood can't let this stand. A rancher making them look weak. They'll burn this whole valley to restore their reputation. Let me worry about my family, Sheriff. Mike's voice carries the weight of decades of combat experience. You're a good man, a good lawman, but this isn't a police matter anymore. This is something else. What do you plan to do? They want to hunt me. Mike's eyes scan the horizon where the first hint of dawn begins to show. I'm going to teach them what real hunting looks like. Fletcher's truck appears on the dusty road, followed by 3 more vehicles. More former operators, men who understand what it means when someone threatens one of their own. They park in a practiced defensive pattern, already setting up a security perimeter. Ghost lead! Fletcher approaches, carrying heavy equipment bags. Got what you asked for, full kit, just like the old days. Mike accepts the gear, checking each piece with practiced efficiency. They'll expect us to run, he says while examining an encrypted radio. To hide, to call for help, and instead, we're going to become their worst nightmare. Mike begins checking equipment with methodical precision. The Brotherhood thinks they can bring their war here? Fine. Let's show them what war really looks like. Sheriff Wilson watches the military precision with which these retired operators move, setting up communications, establishing fields of fire. This is going to get bad, isn't it? No, Mike corrects him. It already is bad. For them. Inside, Catherine Reeves wakes to find her husband gearing up. She recognizes that look, the one she hasn't seen since his active duty days. Mike, I know what you're going to say, he starts. No, she interrupts, you don't. She stands, her strength showing in every movement. I was going to say, make them regret ever hearing the name Reeves. Sarah joins them, her tablet in hand. I've got their entire network mapped. Safe houses, supply routes, communication protocols. She displays a detailed diagram of the Brotherhood's operation. They're organized, professional, and they've got resources. Good. Mike studies the information. Then they'll follow procedure, react according to training, and that makes them predictable. Fletcher enters with more intelligence. First hit team is already in motion. Venezuelan Special Forces veterans. Contract killers. They like to strike at dawn. Standard shock tactics. Mike nods. Hit hard, hit fast, overwhelm with superior numbers and firepower. That's not going to work here, is it? Sarah asks. Why not? A cold smile touches Mike's lips. Because they're still thinking like soldiers fighting the last war. But this isn't a war. What is it then? A hunting ground, Mike replies. My hunting ground. He begins laying out maps of the valley on a makeshift command table. And they're about to learn the difference between soldiers and conductors, between killers and hunters, between force and precision. The Venezuelan team moves through the pre-dawn darkness with professional precision. 12 men, all former special forces, their movements synchronized by years of combat experience. Their target is a farmhouse 2 counties over, where their intelligence suggests the Reeves family is hiding. Contact approaching. Their point man whispers in Spanish. Single vehicle, farm truck. Colonel Rivera watches through his night vision. As an old pickup approaches on the dirt road, hold positions, let it pass. The truck rumbles closer, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Just another rancher starting his day early. The team remains motionless, invisible in their concealed positions. The truck passes their location. Nothing unusual. Then it stops. Why is he stopping? Rivera mutters. The answer comes in a cascade of events that happen too fast to process. The truck's bed suddenly erupts in light, powerful LEDs flooding the area with blinding illumination. The team's night vision Devices flare white, useless. In the same instant, targeted EMPs kill their radio communications. Before they can recover, shots crack from multiple directions, not trying to kill. Precise shots that impact inches from feet, forcing movement, creating chaos. The professional team suddenly finds themselves dancing to someone else's tune, their practiced formations breaking apart. "Ambush!" Rivera shouts, but his men can't hear him over their dead radios. The team scatters for cover, but every position. They choose draws, more fire, herding them like cattle in the darkness beyond the lights, just like training insurgents. Mike whispers to Fletcher, who's prone beside him. They fall back on basic responses when surprised. The Venezuelan team regroups behind an irrigation ditch, trying to re-establish order. Rivera's mind races. This isn't right. Their intelligence said Reeves was defensive, protecting his family. This is something else. This is phone rings, not their tactical communications, a simple cell phone sitting on the ditch bank next to them. It wasn't there a moment ago. Rivera stares at it. His men stare at it. After 3 rings, he answers. "Colonel Rivera." Michael Reeves's voice comes through clearly. "You're probably wondering how I knew exactly where your team would set up their ambush position." Rivera's blood runs cold. They hadn't told anyone their plans, their route. "The answer is simple," Mike continues. "It's where I would have put them. Same training, same tactics. The difference is, I've spent 10 years learning this valley, every ditch, every shadow, every angle, while you just got here." "What do you want?" Rivera manages. "To deliver a message. Look at your men, really look at them." Rivera turns. Red laser dots dance on his team's chests. Not 1 or 2, at least 20. They're surrounded by shooters they never saw, never heard. "I could have killed your entire team 7 times in the last 4 minutes. Mike's voice carries absolute certainty. "But that's not the message. The message is this. Take your men and leave. Tell the Brotherhood that Sonora Valley is now a hunting ground. Their hunting ground. But I'm the hunter. You think threats will stop the Brotherhood? Not a threat. Colonel, an opportunity. You're professionals. You understand the difference between winnable and unwinnable scenarios. Right now, you're being offered a choice. In the distance, emergency vehicle lights flash, police sirens wail. Those police," Mike continues, "they're responding to an anonymous tip about armed cartel members threatening local ranchers. They'll be here in 5 minutes. In 4 minutes, my team and I will be gone, leaving you to explain your presence, your weapons, your intentions." Rivera's mind works furiously, evaluating options, finding none. "Or," Mike's voice carries a cold smile, "you could be gone in 3 minutes. Return to your employers. Explain what you found here. Explain that some territory isn't worth the cost." The laser sights vanish. The blinding lights cut out. Darkness returns, but now it feels different. Now every shadow might hide death. "One last thing," Mike adds. "The other 2 teams the Brotherhood sent, they're receiving similar messages right now." The line goes dead. 20 miles away, a second cartel hit team finds their vehicles disabled, their communications jammed, and their positions suddenly very, very vulnerable. Their leader receives a similar call. 30 miles in the opposite direction, the third team discovers that the farmhouse they were surveilling is empty, has been empty for days. But the drainage tunnels beneath it are not empty. Not anymore. In the Brotherhood's hastily established command center, Castillo receives 3 calls in rapid succession. 3 elite teams, all reporting the same thing. the hunter they were sent. To kill has become something else entirely, something that moves through darkness like a conductor, strikes like a serpent, and knows their every move before they make it. Impossible, Castillo snarls. He's just one man. No, Santiago says quietly, fear finally showing in his voice. He's not just a man. We made him something else. We threatened his family. Now he's become what he used to be, what he spent years trying not to be. And what's that? A conductor of chaos, Santiago whispers. We put his family in danger, and we turned a rancher back into a weapon. The sun rises over Sonora Valley, painting the sky blood red. In safe houses and hidden bunkers, Brotherhood forces check weapons with shaking hands, jump at shadows, and wait for phones to ring. They came hunting a desperate father. Instead, they awakened something far worse, a conductor who knows their every move, a hunter who owns the night, and a warrior who's remembered exactly why he was once feared on battlefields across the world. The hunt has only begun. Castillo paces the floor of their hastily established command center, an abandoned warehouse outside town. Maps cover the walls, each marked with another failed operation, another team neutralized without a single casualty. 5 days have passed since their elite teams retreated, and nothing has gone right since, Santiago reports, his usual confidence shattered. 8 supply convoys hit, 5 safe houses compromised, 20 runners arrested, police somehow knowing exactly where to find our shipments. Someone's talking, Castillo seethes. We have a traitor. No. The security chief, recently freed on bail, shakes his head. This is different. Look at the pattern. He gestures to the map. Red marks show their losses, forming a steadily tightening noose around their primary operations. Each hit precisely targeted, each loss strategically chosen to cause maximum disruption with minimum force. He's dismantling us, the chief continues, piece by piece, using our own security protocols against us. When we change radio frequencies, he's already there. When we switch routes, he's waiting. A burner phone rings, one whose number only 5 people know. Castillo answers with shaking hands. Your shipment at the Rodriguez Ranch. Michael Reeves' voice comes through, calm as ever. The one you think is safely hidden in the grain silo. DEA is hitting it in 15 minutes. How? Castillo begins, but the line goes dead. Santiago is already moving. I'll warn them, get the shipment. Wait, the security chief grabs his arm. Think, every time we react, we walk into another trap. He's playing us like puppets. At the Rodriguez Ranch, DEA agents find over 300 kilos of cocaine hidden exactly where their anonymous tip said it would be. But more importantly, they find documentation, paperwork leading to 4 more storage locations. In a hidden observation post half a mile away, Mike watches through his scope as another piece of the Brotherhood's empire crumbles. Fletcher lies, prone beside him, monitoring radio frequencies. They're running scared, Ghost Lead, Fletcher observes, making mistakes. Fear does that. Mike adjusts his scope slightly. Makes professionals act like amateurs, makes amateurs act like victims, learned that in training, learned it in the field, fears like a virus, gets into a unit, spreads man to man, breaks down discipline. He checks his watch. Time for the next phase. Across town, Castillo receives another call, this one from their banker in Mexico City. All their legitimate business accounts have been frozen. Someone provided evidence of money laundering to financial authorities. Impossible, he roars. Those accounts were clean. But Sarah Reeves's downloaded files proved otherwise. While the Brotherhood watched their borders and counted their guns, a rancher's daughter armed with a tablet had stolen their most dangerous secrets, their money trails. "We still have the backup accounts," Santiago offers. "The offshore ones. Check. Them," the security chief suggests quietly. "They're gone. Every account, every hidden reserve, drained or frozen or exposed." 5 days of carefully orchestrated financial warfare has left one of the most powerful cartels in 4 states, cash poor and desperate. He's not just hunting us, the chief realizes. He's starving us out. In safe houses across the valley, Brotherhood, soldiers realize their pay hasn't arrived. Mercenaries check their accounts to find them empty. The cheap muscle leaves first, then the mid-level enforcers. By sunset, the Brotherhood's army has shrunk by half. Mike's phone buzzes, Sheriff Wilson with an update. "Your anonymous tips are paying off. Just arrested 4 of their corrupt deputies. They're singing like birds, Mike, giving up names, locations, everything." People get honest when their paychecks. "Stop," Mike observes. "Loyalty only runs as deep as the last deposit." DEA is talking about task forces, major operations. They want to know who's feeding them intelligence. Keep them focused on the Brotherhood. I'll handle the rest. Back at the warehouse, Castillo receives word of another desertion, another lost shipment, another compromised route. His empire is evaporating like morning mist, torn apart by an enemy he cannot find, cannot fight. "Call everyone in," he orders. Finally. Every soldier, every officer, pull back to central locations. Safety in numbers. The security chief closes his eyes in resignation. That's exactly what he wants. "What are you talking about?" "By consolidating our forces, we're making his job easier, putting all our remaining resources in easy-to-target locations." The chief looks at the map again, seeing the pattern too late. "We're not running an operation anymore. We're running a retreating action, and we don't even know it." Santiago's phone buzzes, a text message from an unknown number. Just 5 words. "Thank you for concentrating my targets." In the hills overlooking the valley, Mike puts away his phone and turns to his team, former operators who understand the art of unconventional warfare, waiting for his orders. "They're gathering their forces," he tells them. "Putting all their eggs in 3 baskets, just like we planned." "Like you planned," Fletcher corrects. "From the moment they took your family, this was the end game, wasn't it?" Mike checks his weapon with practiced efficiency. The Brotherhood wanted to teach the valley a lesson about fear. His eyes, cold as battlefield frost, scan the darkening horizon. Time to teach them one instead. Night falls over Sonora Valley. In 3 fortified locations, what remains of the Brotherhood's once mighty force huddles behind walls and weapons, jumping at shadows, waiting for phones to ring. But tonight, the phones will stay silent. Tonight there won't be any warnings, because tonight the conductor stops orchestrating from the shadows. Tonight he comes for his prey. The abandoned livestock auction house squats against the night sky like a fortress. The Brotherhood has fortified it well. Guards posted on elevated positions, surveillance cameras covering every approach, motion sensors scattered across the grounds. Inside, 40 of their remaining soldiers wait, taking comfort in numbers and firepower. Santiago stalks the catwalks, watching the darkness beyond their perimeter. 5 days of constant pressure have left him ragged, jumping at every shadow. The quiet is worse than any attack. The waiting, the wondering where Reeves will strike next. "Movement, east fence," a guard calls out. Spotlights snap on, illuminating empty ground. Another false alarm, their fourth in 2 hours. "Control your men," Santiago snarls at his lieutenant. "They're seeing ghosts." "Maybe we are," the lieutenant mutters. 5 days and no one's even seen Reeves. Just what he leaves behind. In the darkness beyond the auction house perimeter, Mike watches through his thermal scope. Every spotlight they activate, every nervous reaction tells him more about their positions, their protocols. "Guard patterns mapped," Fletcher's voice whispers through his earpiece. "They're running 4-man rotations, staggered intervals. Sloppy." Fatigue setting in, Mike observes. Fears making them bunch up, stay in lit areas. He switches frequencies. "Team 2, status?" "In position at the power substation," comes the reply. "Ready when you are, Ghost Lead." Mike checks his watch. Years of experience have taught him that timing is everything in operations like this. Let fear build too long. Men start thinking straight again. Don't let it build enough. They're still capable of coordinated response. 3 minutes, he orders. "Mark!" Inside the auction house, Santiago's radio crackles. "Sir, vehicle approaching. Cargo truck, one of ours." Finally, Santiago breathes. That'll be the ammunition resupply from the border. He'd been waiting for it, knowing their cash supplies were running low after 5 days of jumping at shadows. The truck approaches the gate, its driver providing the correct authentication codes. Guards wave it through, relief evident in their movements. No one notices that the driver's hands are trembling slightly, that his eyes keep darting to his rearview mirror, because the driver is one of their own runners, turned by a combination of frozen accounts and carefully applied pressure. Just as Mike knew someone would be, the truck backs into the loading bay. Guards move to begin unloading, their attention focused on the rear doors, which means no one is watching when the driver slips something under his seat and walks quickly away. "Clear the area," one guard orders. Standard security protocol for vehicle inspection, exactly as expected. "Execute," Mike's voice whispers through the radio net. At the power substation half a mile away, Team 2 detonates their charges. The auction house plunges into darkness as main power dies. Emergency lights kick in, creating more shadows than illumination. Guards scramble to defensive positions, weapons ready. They're expecting an assault from the perimeter following the distraction of the power loss. It's what they would do, what their training tells them to expect. Instead, the device under the truck's seat activates, flooding the loading bay with military-grade CS gas, non-lethal, but brutally effective in enclosed spaces. "Breach teams go," Mike orders quietly. His men, wearing gas masks and using thermal imaging, enter through 3 points simultaneously. Not shooting, they don't need to. The gas has created chaos, breaking the defenders' cohesion. The few guards still able to see clearly are looking outward, expecting an attack from the perimeter. They don't expect the shadows inside to come. Alive. Mike moves through the facility like a conductor directing his deadly symphony. His movements efficient, precise, each step calculated, each position chosen to maximize confusion. When he does engage, it's with practiced hand-to-hand techniques, quick, quiet takedowns that create no noise to alert others. "Sierra sector clear," Fletcher reports. "Echo sector clear," comes another whisper. Guards trying to retreat to higher. Ground finds stairwells blocked by more CS gas grenades, precisely placed to herd them into killing zones, not for slaughter, but for capture. Because Michael Reeves isn't here to kill, he's here to send a message. Santiago realizes too late what's happening. The attack isn't coming from outside, it's already inside, has been inside since that truck arrived. By the time he tries to Organize a response. Half his men are down, the other half scattered and blind. He runs for the command center, hoping to salvage something, anything. The door is locked. He's sure he left it open. When he swipes his keycard, it opens easily. Mike sits at the security console, calmly downloading files. Not wearing tactical gear, not even body armor, just sitting there like he's at his own desk. Impossible, Santiago whispers. No, Mike corrects him. Inevitable. The moment you turned my ranch into your battleground, this became inevitable. Santiago reaches for his sidearm. His hand never makes it. Mike moves with the speed of countless combat operations, crossing the space between them like death itself. When precise strike and Santiago crumples, Ghost lead, building is secure, Fletcher reports. 38 captured, 2 escaped during initial confusion. No casualties. Copy. Tell our police friends they can come in now, and make sure they find the shipment manifests I left in the loading bay. Already done. You know Castillo is going. To respond to this hard, count on it. Mike's voice carries absolute certainty. That's exactly what I want. Outside, police sirens approach as the gas begins to clear. Inside, Brotherhood soldiers are zip-tied and waiting for arrest. Their mighty fortress turned into a trap by one man's precise planning. In the command center, Mike places a phone call. When Castillo answers, his voice shaking with rage, Mike's message is simple. 1 down, 2 to go. He disconnects before Castillo can respond because there's nothing to discuss. No threats to make. This isn't about negotiation or intimidation. This is about hunting. And the night is still young. News of the auction house's fall hits the Brotherhood's second stronghold like a thunderbolt. Inside the converted truck depot they're using as a fallback position, Castillo watches security footage from the raid on a laptop, his face growing darker with each frame. 38 men, he seethes. 38 combat-trained soldiers, taken down by a handful of attackers. No shots fired, no alarms raised, just... He slams the laptop shut. Gone. The security chief studies the depot's defenses through the monitor bank. They've doubled the guards, tripled the motion sensors. Every approach is covered by overlapping fields of fire, but his years of experience tell him it won't matter. He's not going to come at us the same way twice, the chief says quietly. That's not how they operate. Castillo turns on him. You know something about these men? I served in Iraq, heard stories about operators like Reeves. Delta teams, they called them. Men who could infiltrate enemy strongholds, dismantle entire networks, vanish without leaving traces. He gestures at the footage. This is their playbook. Each attack different, each approach unexpected. We have 50 men here, Castillo counters. Better armed, better prepared. Numbers don't matter. Weapons don't matter. He's not fighting us, he's hunting us. And we're playing his game without even knowing the rules. A guard bursts in, face pale. Sir, the police scanner. They just found our backup communication center. DEA is moving in now. Castillo's phone rings. A text message from an unknown number. Your radio protocols were outdated. Had to give them something to do while I work. Impossible. Castillo hurls the phone against the wall. That site was completely hidden underground. Only 5 people knew its location. 4 now, the chief corrects. Santiago's in custody, remember? And he'll talk. They always talk when Delta's involved. Miles away in a makeshift command post, Mike reviews thermal imaging of the truck depot with his team. Fletcher marks entry points on the map while other operators check equipment. They're bunkered down tight, Fletcher observes. No easy approach this time. Good, Mike's voice carries satisfaction. They're scared, making the mistakes scared men always make, focusing on defense. fortifying position, thinking walls and guns make them safe. He points to the depot's power supply, but they forgot the first rule of survival. Never let the enemy choose the battlefield, Fletcher finishes. Exactly. Mike turns to his radio operator. Status on our friend at the power company? Maintenance crew is in position, ready on your signal. Sarah's voice comes through another channel. She's safely away from the action, but her technical skills are proving invaluable. Dad, I've got their internal network mapped. They're running everything. Surveillance, communications, door locks, on their own servers, independent from outside systems. Can you get in? Don't need to. There's pride in her voice. Their backup generator is automated. When main power fails, it'll try to sync with their network before starting. Creates a 3-second window. Mike allows himself a small smile. His daughter's mind for technical details combined with his tactical experience, it's a deadly combination. 3 seconds is an eternity. In the depot, guards pace nervously, watching shadows. Every few minutes, someone fires at a suspected movement only to find empty air. Nerves are fraying, fingers too tight on triggers. Hold your fire. The security chief orders through the radio net. Conserve ammunition. That's what he wants. Us shooting at shadows until we're empty. But his words have little effect. These men have spent 5 days being hunted by a conductor of chaos. Each lost shipment, each arrested colleague, each compromised safe house has built a legend around Michael Reeves. Now, every dark corner holds potential death. Every quiet moment promises violence. Status report, Castillo demands. All sectors secure, comes the response. No movement on thermal imaging. Motion sensors clear. We've got men on every... The radio cuts out. The lights follow. A second later, generator, Castillo shouts. Get the backup power online. But when the generator tries to start, it crashes attempting to sync with networks that are suddenly, inexplicably dormant. 3 seconds of total darkness, 3 seconds of complete vulnerability. 3 seconds is an eternity. When emergency batteries finally kick in, casting weak light through the depot, 5 guards have vanished from their posts. No sounds, no signs of struggle. Just empty positions where armed men stood moments ago. Find them, Castillo orders, but his voice shakes because he knows, just as every man in the depot knows, that they haven't deserted. They've been taken, like pieces removed from a chessboard by an invisible hand. The security chief stares at his monitors, watching thermal signatures bunch together as scared men seek safety in numbers. Exactly what they shouldn't do. Exactly what Mike wants them to do. He's inside, the chief whispers. Has been for hours, probably. All our precautions, all our defenses. We built ourselves a cage and locked ourselves in with him. Castillo's phone buzzes again. Another message. Should have spent more on night vision gear and less on bribing officials. But then, that's always been the Brotherhood's weakness, hasn't it? Style over substance, fear over skill. In the darkness between emergency lights, something moves. Guards fire wildly, hitting nothing. When the shooting stops, 4 more men are missing. The hunt continues, and this time there's nowhere left to run. The truck depot has become a maze of shadows and fear. Emergency lights cast irregular pools of amber illumination, creating more darkness than they dispel. Every few minutes, another guard disappears silently into that darkness, taken so quietly that their teammates only realize they're gone when radio checks go unanswered. 20 men missing, the security chief reports, his voice hollow. No signs of combat, no bodies. They're just gone. Where is he taking them? What is he doing with them? Castillo paces the command center, his expensive shoes marking an increasingly frantic rhythm. Nothing. The chief's response carries the weight of terrible understanding. He's not hurting them. He's removing them from the equation like a conductor clearing the stage piece by piece. A burst of gunfire erupts from the loading dock, followed by screams. By the time reinforcements arrive, they find 3 more empty posts. Shell casings on the floor show that the guards got off multiple shots. The walls show no impact marks. They're shooting at shadows, the chief realizes. Burning through ammunition, giving away positions, exhausting themselves. Basic psychological warfare. Through their compromised radio net, they hear their own men's panic growing. Where is he? Did you see that movement? Rodriguez, respond! Has anyone seen Rodriguez? In the rafters above the main floor, Mike moves like the conductor they named. Him, each step calculated, each shadow utilized. He's been inside for hours, mapping patrol routes, identifying weak points. Now he harvests the fear he's planted, picking off isolated guards with precise hand-to-hand techniques. Ghost lead, North Sector clear, Fletcher's voice whispers through his earpiece. 8 packaged for delivery. South Sector clear, comes another report. 6 more ready for transport. Sheriff Wilson coordinates from outside the perimeter. Each captured guard quietly evacuated through pre-planned routes, zip-tied and waiting for arrest. No injuries, no shots fired, just the silent dismantling of the Brotherhood's remaining force. Dad, they're clustering in the central storage area. Sarah's voice joins the radio net. 40 heat signatures. Looks like they're making a final. Stand. No, Mike responds softly. They're making my job easier. Inside the command center, Castillo watches thermal imaging with growing horror as his remaining men bunch together, seeking safety in numbers. Basic human instinct taking over, overriding their training. Spread out, he orders through the radio. Maintain perimeter positions. But fear has taken too deep a root. These men have spent the last hour watching their companions vanish into darkness. They've fired at shadows and hit nothing. They've heard the whispers of those who served in Afghanistan, who remember stories of Delta teams that could dismantle entire Taliban strongholds in a single night. The security chief stares at his monitors, understanding finally clicking into place. This isn't an assault, he whispers. It's a demonstration. He's showing us, showing everyone, what happens when you threaten a man like him. More gunfire erupts, more shouts. Guards fire at moving shadows, only to find they're shooting at their own reflections in windows, their own teammates' movements. Chaos builds upon chaos, then the gas comes. Not like at the auction house. This is different. Smoke grenades fired simultaneously from multiple points, filling the central area with thick white clouds. Not harmful, just disorienting. But to men already on the edge of panic, it might as well be death itself. "Masks on!" someone shouts, but the command comes too late. In their fear, in their clustering together, they've made themselves a perfect target for this simple tactic. Through the smoke, shapes move. Professional operators in gas masks taking down confused guards with precise efficiency. No killing, no unnecessary force. Just the clinical application of superior training and preparation. Ghost lead. They're running for the east exit, Fletcher reports. "Let them," Mike responds, because he knows what waits outside. Police vehicles, DEA. Tactical teams, all carefully positioned hours ago. The prey is being herded step by step, exactly where he wants them. In the command center, Castillo watches as his security forces collapse, not through violence, but through fear, through the methodical application of pressure and psychology. that turns trained soldiers into panicked civilians. It's over, the security chief says quietly. The moment we consolidated our forces, it was over. We gave him exactly what he wanted, all his targets in one place. Castillo's phone buzzes one final time. The message is simple: run. He does, through back corridors, down emergency stairs, toward a hidden vehicle he kept for exactly this scenario. Behind him, the sound of his men being systematically captured fades into the night, but as he reaches his escape route, he finds the vehicle's tires are slashed. A phone sits on the hood, ringing. With trembling fingers, he answers. "Did you really think I didn't know about your escape plan?" Mike's voice comes through calm as ever. "That I hadn't been inside this building for hours before I started taking your men?" "What do you want?" Castillo manages. "Look up." He does. In the shadows above him, a figure moves. The last thing Castillo sees is Michael Reeves dropping silently from the rafters, moving with the liquid grace of a predator too long denied its true nature. The night ends with police lights painting the depot in red and blue. 45 Brotherhood soldiers in custody, millions in drugs and weapons seized, and one cartel leader found zip-tied next to his disabled escape vehicle, his empire in ruins. But Mike isn't there to see it. He's already moving toward his final target, the Brotherhood's last stronghold, where the remnants of their leadership huddle in growing fear. Because tonight has been more than an assault. It's been a message written in fear and precision that will echo through every cartel in 4 states. Some lines you don't cross, some men you don't threaten, and some conductors can't be outrun, no matter how far you flee. Dawn breaks over Sonora Valley, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. In police stations across 3 counties, arrested Brotherhood soldiers tell the same story. Of shadows that moved, of men who disappeared, of a conductor who dismantled one of the most powerful cartels in Arizona without firing a shot. Sheriff Wilson reviews the preliminary reports in his office, shaking his head in amazement. 45 arrests at the depot alone. No injuries, no shots fired. DEA is calling it unprecedented. Fletcher sits across from him, cleaning his non-lethal equipment with military precision. They don't understand what they're dealing with. This isn't about arrests or seizures. What is it about? Teaching them fear. Fletcher's voice carries the weight of experience. Remember what Mike was like in the service? The missions they sent him on? I heard stories. Delta teams, they called them. More than that. Mike specialized in psychological warfare, breaking enemy forces not through violence, but through the threat of violence, making them defeat themselves. Fletcher checks his watch. And now the Brotherhood is learning why. In the final Brotherhood stronghold, a fortified desert compound, the remaining cartel lieutenants gather around a phone, playing intercepted police communications. Their faces grow paler with each report. The depot was impregnable, one says. Motion sensors, thermal cameras, 50 armed men. How did he get inside? He was already inside, another responds, fear evident in his voice. Martinez swears he saw Reeves in the cafeteria hours before the attack, just sitting there drinking coffee. But when they reviewed security footage, there was nothing. At the safe house, Sarah works on her tablet, coordinating with local law enforcement through encrypted channels her father established. They're running out of options, she reports. Their accounts are frozen, their supply lines cut, their soldiers either arrested or deserting. Catherine watches her husband check his equipment, noting how the rancher's gentleness has been replaced by a warrior's economy of motion. You knew it would come to this, didn't you? From the moment they took us, the moment they threatened you, Mike corrects quietly. Everything since then has been inevitable, like watching dominoes fall. His phone buzzes, a message from one of his spotters near the compound. The remaining Brotherhood leadership is calling in their last reserves. Mercenaries, cartel soldiers, anyone they can still trust, building their numbers for a final stand. They're fortifying the high ground, Fletcher observes, studying satellite imagery. Multiple defensive rings, interlocking fields of fire. These aren't street thugs anymore. These are their elite. Good, Mike's voice carries satisfaction. They're playing right into our hands again. Lucy looks up from her tablet. They've got to know it's a mistake, bunching up like this after what happened at the depot. They do, Mike confirms, but they're out of options. Running means looking weak in front of other cartels. Standing their ground means facing us. They're choosing the death they can understand. In the desert compound, Brotherhood lieutenants argue strategy while hired guns patrol the perimeter. They've laid claymore mines, set up sniper positions, established kill zones. Everything by the book, but the book was written by men like Michael Reeves. Ghost lead, we've got movement. Fletcher's voice comes through the radio. 3 vehicles approaching the compound from the south. Heavy weapons visible. Reinforcements, Mike notes, right on schedule. You're letting them through? For now. The more of them gathered in one place, the fewer we have to hunt down later. Catherine watches thermal imaging of the compound, counting heat signatures. They've got nearly 70 men up there now. Professional soldiers. No, Mike corrects. They've got 70 scared men playing soldier. There's a difference. He stands, checking his equipment one final time, each piece maintained perfectly, each movement practiced until it became instinct. In his eyes, Catherine sees not the rancher she married, but the warrior she first met, the conductor who moved through war zones like a shadow of death. You're not going to attack them head on, she says. It's not a question. No, I'm going to make them attack themselves. Sarah looks up from her coordinating work. The DEA wants to move in, Dad. They're talking about helicopter gunships, tactical teams. Tell them to wait. Give me 6 hours. What happens in 6 hours? Mike checks his watch as the sun climbs higher. In 6 hours, the Brotherhood learns. The difference between soldiers and conductors, between killers and hunters, between threatening a man's family and making the last mistake they'll ever make. The desert compound bristles with weapons and warriors. They've built a fortress on high ground, established perfect fields of fire, gathered their most ruthless fighters. Everything their training tells them will keep them safe. But as Mike moves out with his team, as the morning sun casts long shadows across Sonora Valley, he knows what they don't. No fortress is impregnable, no army is invincible, and no prey escapes when a conductor decides to orchestrate their fall. The final symphony begins at sunset. The Brotherhood's remaining force, now over 80 strong, waits behind their fortifications. They've spent millions on defense systems, posted snipers on every vantage point, established overlapping fields of fire. Nothing can approach without being seen. Then the music starts. Not literal music, but the coordinated chaos that only a true conductor can create. First, their communications go dark, then their power fails. When the backup generators kick in, they're somehow broadcasting their own radio traffic back to them, creating confusion, paranoia. Snipers start disappearing from their posts, not taken by force, but drawn away by phantom movements, strange sounds, glimpses of shadows that couldn't be there. By midnight, the remaining Brotherhood forces have pulled back to their inner defenses, abandoning their carefully planned perimeter. Mike's voice comes through their command channel, impossibly clear despite their scrambled frequencies. Your outer defenses are mine now. I own your kill zones. Your claymores are gone. The only thing your fortifications are doing is keeping you trapped. Surrender. They respond with bursts of gunfire into the darkness. Mike's quiet laugh carries through their radios. That's the last of your ammunition for the east sector. You've got maybe 20 minutes of sustained fire left in the north, 15 in the south. Would you like me to keep counting down? Inside the compound, the remaining Brotherhood leadership realizes the truth. They're not fighting a man or even a team. They're fighting a force of nature, a conductor who turns their own preparations against them, a hunter who spent every moment since they took his family planning their destruction. Before dawn, the last Brotherhood stronghold falls, not to a massive assault or overwhelming force, but to the methodical dismantling of their will to fight. When DEA teams finally move in, they find over 80 of the most hardened cartel soldiers sitting quietly, waiting to surrender, their weapons laid down, their spirits broken. They tell stories about ghosts moving through walls, about a conductor who knew their every move before they made it, about a rancher who turned out to be something far more dangerous, a father protecting his family with skills honed in the world's deadliest battlefields. 1 year later, Sonora Valley has changed. The Brotherhood is gone, their networks dismantled, their operations scattered to dust, but something else has grown in their place. Something stronger than fear. The Reeves family still runs their ranch, still trains their horses. But now, they represent something more. Sarah's monitoring systems have evolved into a valley-wide network, protecting not just their land, but their entire community. Catherine's strength has become a symbol for other families standing against threats, and Michael, he's still just a rancher, but everyone knows that sometimes the quietest men are the most dangerous. Other cartels have learned to avoid Sonora Valley. They tell stories about it in hushed voices, about the conductor who walks in shadows, about the price of threatening the wrong family, about the difference between soldiers who fight and warriors who hunt. The sun sets on another peaceful day. At the Double R Ranch, Mike stands on his porch, watching his daughter work with a young horse in the practice ring. The deadly skills that dismantled an empire are once again contained behind a rancher's calm demeanor. But everyone knows, some lines you don't cross, some men you don't threaten, and some conductors never forget how to orchestrate the fall of those foolish enough to endanger what they love. The legend grows, spreading through criminal networks. Like wildfire, they call him El Director now, the conductor. Not because he brings death, but because he orchestrates fear itself. In the years that follow, no cartel dares move against a ranch family in 4 states. The lesson is clear, written in the ruins of the Brotherhood's empire. Sometimes, the most dangerous predators are the ones who choose peace, until peace is no longer an option. The Reeves family has returned to their quiet life, but they've taught the entire borderland an unforgettable lesson. True strength isn't found in violence or numbers or weapons. It's found in the will to protect what matters, in the skills to back up that will, and in the wisdom to know when to unleash the conductor who waits behind a rancher's smile. As night falls over Sonora Valley, Michael Reeves checks his property one last time, not because he expects trouble, but because old habits depart. The night belongs to him now, and every shadow carries a warning to those who might think of bringing violence to peaceful places. Some mistakes you only live long enough to regret, some hunters can't be outrun, and some conductors never forget. How to orchestrate the fall of empires, the Brotherhood learned their lesson. The borderlands remember. And in Sonora Valley, peace grows like desert flowers after rain, protected by a family that proved some bonds can't be broken, some skills can't be forgotten, and some conductors never lose their touch for turning darkness into their own deadly symphony. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time and effort, so if you enjoyed it, please make sure to subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. We deliver powerful stories that can transform your life, and we've saved another incredible story just for our next video, so don't miss it. It's waiting for you to discover. Hit that subscribe button now and join our fast-growing family of millions who love these thrilling tales of justice and redemption. Up next, an equally gripping story awaits on your screen. Just click to watch. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next captivating story. See you in the next one.